Computer. Hello and welcome to Obstacle Illusion with April Gallagher and Anna Clint. Today we are going to be continuing the journey of living your purpose, but we're looking specifically about trusting intuition and
the tests of the universe.
The tests of the universe. Yes, the testing. Oh, you know what? My daughter, my oldest daughter is in high school this year, freshman in high school. And today is the first day of finals. She has finals today and tomorrow. So this is her first experience. I mean, she was coming from a small Montessori school. Now she's in a large public high school. So this is her first experience with finals. So we can use that. Finals, testing. Let's talk about testing. So what does that mean to you?
Well, finals just feel so final.
Yeah, finals. I feel like the testing we're talking about today are not finals.
Well, they could be depending on if you opt out of the whole game. Right. If the test becomes so great that you decide to opt out of the whole game, then yes, it is your final exam.
More like pop quizzes because they come up when you don't expect them.
That's a much better analogy. The pop quiz, only like quiz is like light feeling and like happy dancy, but sometimes when these pop quizzes come up, they don't feel very light and they feel very heavy and they're sometimes very confusing. And what we're talking about is like, in your spiritual awakening process, if you're having a dark night of the soul kind of thing, and you're being tested and challenged to really like step into the next version of yourself, which is really just, what finding your and living your purpose is just this, right? Don't you think like this kind of like continuing to like step into the next version of you? Like we're constantly evolving, but these tests or quizzes, pop quizzes, just can sometimes show up in these ways that, well, they can show up in all kinds of ways. I have a client who just got offered this job. She's self-employed and is kind of her own boss and works with a lot of nonprofits and does a lot of wonderful things in the world. And she just got offered this teaching job, like an adjunct teaching job, part-time. And she thought it was everything she always wanted. And then she came to find out that there was not going to, like the compensation was just really not going to be enough to really allow her to continue doing her work that she does. Plus this, like, it just didn't feel aligned when it came down to like the brass tacks of like what this thing would actually be. And in some ways, like this is a great example of what this like pop quiz is, right? It's like this was what she thought was a dream job for her. Like she really wanted to be teaching. And then to find out that if she's teaching, she can't actually afford to live. Like that's a really hard call to make, especially if you've gotten it into your heart and soul and mind that like, this is it. Like, this is my path. This is my purpose. It might very well be her purpose. I actually haven't connected with her to find out, did she negotiate? Did they offer more? And there's also other ways that we get compensated besides just money. There's all these other layers to it. It isn't just that. But like, it was just such a clear-cut example of like a universal test, and so that's just like one way. Another way is, like I'm being tested in my health right now. I'm experiencing a really difficult passage, and it's relying, I'm relying on working it from the 3D angles and from the 5D angles and really like observing this process and saying, my God, is this ever challenging? And like, what am I missing here? Like, it feels like I'm missing something, and that, and then you put, heap on more pressure of like, well, what am I missing? How am I supposed to figure this out? Kind of a thing. Like, what's my next step? Like where intuitively, what should I be doing? And this is another kind of a pop quiz. One I would really like to not have to take. Thank you very much. Can I pass without this quiz?
Only if you do enough extra credit.
All right. Well, what's the extra credit, Teach?
The extra credit. Well, I'm not exactly sure, but one thing that I wanted that came up when you were talking about what am I missing is that is actually like, that is the key piece, right? So when my take on it is that when we're experiencing something manifesting in the body is discomfort, disease, whatever it is, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's cancer. It really doesn't matter like what it is that
Totally.
it can be through the lens of sacred optometry viewed as an area of a spotlight of there's a part of you that is missing. There's a part of your beingness that isn't getting attention, that you're not putting your life force into. So there's a part of your body that's not receiving life force, and it's about embracing that area and whatever it is, the area physical in the body, but it could be that it's that it represents neglect from 1,000 years ago. Like who knows really specifically
Totally.
what it is, but that question of that idea of like, what am I missing is, I think, a really important one, because it's like, okay, what within myself, the totality of my being, have I forgotten? Have I neglected? Have I shut down? Have I not embraced? Have I not embodied? And and everything can be seen like that, and not like, oh, it's this and I have to whatever. And so
for sure.
And I think that goes up back to, and I can't remember if we mentioned this since we started this conversation or before we started recording, about trusting intuition and really connecting with, I mean, yes, it's important to do those things that you're doing on the 3D and the physical and getting the support for the body and whatever that is, that's not to be neglected. But there's also that, and perhaps this is the extra credit, is when you really dive into trusting that you can navigate yourself through this by asking and listening for the answer, and then moving forward in whatever presents to move forward.
Totally. And the A word that you're not mentioning, and by the way, our names all both start with A, but the A word that you're not mentioning is in this, which is like what you're kind of dancing around too, is like coming and finding, refinding, recentering, and coming back to alignment. Right. It's like, and that's the extra credit piece too, is asking it, or asking in these multiple ways, but in what ways am I out of alignment is a great way of also asking, or maybe it's even better to ask, how can I come into greater alignment with the truth of who I am? Like, as you were talking, I was like, yeah, like I am a totally creative person, and I've only like funneled my creativity into my business these last years. Like I haven't, like really embarked on like any other like meaningful creative projects. And by meaningful, I just mean like something that takes more than like, an hour to put together, or something like something that I can like.
So you're saying all of my creativity is non-meaningful?
It's meaningless.
Meaningless. Because I mean,
it's meaningless.
I
didn't want to tell you earlier. I'm surprised you're not dealing with a chronic illness right now, because no. I'm saying this for
quick
me.
And easy.
No. I like quick and easy too, but like most of the times when I've made something, like it's been a gift for someone, or it's been something else. Like it hasn't been like me steeping in a creative process. And there's something about, for me personally, this is not about anybody else's creative process, especially yours, April, but there's something about me where it's like from the seed of the idea, then there's a lot of tinkering, there's a lot of like messing around with materials. Goes back to my like art days of being an artist, and you play around with a lot of stuff. Most of it is garbage and it doesn't really work, and then you somehow like have that eureka moment and you land on something that does really work. And then you're constantly going back to this like vision that you have inside of like this thing, this experience, or this feeling, or this message, or this thing that you'd like to convey in some kind of way. And And I haven't given myself the time. I haven't had necessarily the energy. There's all sorts of excuses. I moved, someone close to me was dying. I mean, I have a million excuses why that are really valid reasons why I haven't been able to focus on that aspect of my creativity. And I do really, sense that this is part of the what this thing that I'm missing
Yeah.
has to do with that. And then there's also like the layers of COVID fatigue and Zoom trauma and, like this is real. Like I get all of pretty much at this point, since I moved to a new place in the middle of the pandemic and I don't know a lot of people here, and and I, end up feeling like I work a lot and I pour all of my attention into my beautiful dog and, all of these things, like all of my interactions happen over a screen. And it's like, I'm a kinesthetic person. Like I want to I want to squeeze you and I want to like go for a hike and I want to, I want to do 3D things. It's starting to sound a little
It does.
evocative.
I want to squeeze you. I want to do 3D things to you.
Wait, do we have to put an adult rating on this one?
I do. Every time when I go to upload it, I say not made for kids.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. In fact, it's already in there as the default. Like it's like, you've already said this, it's not made for kids. Is this still
okay, good.
Well, while you were talking about your creative process, and I felt so much life force in that process. And it does feel like that's what's missing, that if you don't have that in your life, especially you who has so much experience as an artist, so much of your, I guess experience is the right word. I'm not going to say identity because I don't think it's identity anymore. And I don't even think identity touches what this is, but it is the way that you express in this particular life is through an art, is through an artist. And and it's like the electricity that keeps the lights on. And and if you don't have that happening, then it's going to be dark.
Yeah.
And this, this test, this thing that we're talking about, these obstacles, this uncomfortableness that we're up against, you mentioned like, yes, there's all of these very good reasons, all these good excuses, right? Why that's there. And I feel like the opportunity we have is to find ways to navigate bringing that life force in, even with all of these, because the thing we need to remember is that and I'm just going to use the universe right here, but I don't care what word you insert there, but like the universe wants that life force in you, right? The universe wants you to express your creativity. I mean, that is who you are. That is, we are that creator beingness. And so although it looks like there are all these things that are trying to shut that down, when you can get into alignment with it, and who knows, it's different for everybody else. Like, I mean, everybody's different, sometimes it's like you have to feel worthy to like step into that, or you have to feel, I mean, again, there's like, it's unique for everybody, but like, just like clicking into that, and then you have the whole universe like at your back, and now baby steps, right? It's not quitting everything and like creating a masterpiece, right? It's like, you're not going to paint the Sistine Chapel, right? It's like, it might be that on a hike, you allow yourself time to explore a seed, right? Like it might be time that you start playing with it, and you just allow that in without shutting it down because I don't have the time to do it. I don't have the energy to do it. I don't have the whatever. And it's, I feel like that's the thing that I see a lot, and I see that in my own life too, is that it's not big grand gestures.
Right.
It's baby steps. It's
Totally.
in this moment. It's tiny little decisions, tiny little choices, it's tiny little willingnesses to open up instead of close down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Totally.
those add up.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's that giving yourself permission to just do, if you have 15 minutes, so do 5, right?
Wait for
Or 15.
10 and do 5. Right?
Well, by the time you transition and change gears and does this and get a glass of water, you only really have 5 minutes. But yeah.
That's if you drink water.
That's true. Yeah. And if you just drink tea or coffee like us, then you have to go to the bathroom a lot more. And then you have like 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that idea of like finding the places in your energy being and your emotional, spiritual, mental and physical being where the life force energy like is stagnant or isn't allowed to flow, and really doing that deep inquiry around like, did someone say that you weren't allowed to have this? Did you say you weren't allowed to have this? Like really and really just unpacking that, like, whose story is that? Like, what is that? Where did it come from? Is it true? And if I didn't have that story, like, who would I be? I mean, that's Byron Katie, the work right there. But to really just like allow yourself to have this, to just have a vision for a moment that says, what if, like, what if I didn't have this story? Like, what might be different? What could it look like? I like it.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, I can hear somebody saying, well, I don't know what that story is, or I can't find what's limiting me. And I would say, you don't need to know, right? You just play in the possibility of, okay,
Right.
you recognize that something is preventing you from fully expressing yourself or fully feeling yourself. And that's true because you have some disease or discomfort or whatever, like you have something. And
Right.
so it's there, but you can't unpack it. It's okay. You don't need to unpack it. That's where you let go of that, like, that contracting energy of like, I have to figure this out because I can't live my life. I'm always going to be blocked. I'm never going to have any freedom if I don't know what this is. Well, I would say then there's your story, right? Then you let that go, right? And then allow yourself to be like, okay, just what you said, like, who would I be? What could I create if I didn't have this limitation? And you don't need to know the origin of that limitation. You just have to know that because it feels like a limitation, that's evidence that it's not the truth of who you are, and you can let it go.
Right.
And just ask your higher levels, or if it's super important to you because for whatever reason, just, ask to be shown, like, I would like to see this. I want to know what this is. But don't assume that you have to see it in order to clear it, or that you have to see it in order to move on, to be free of it, because that's just another trap.
Yeah.
The universe and yourself as creator wouldn't put those limitations on it. It was like, like, you're here to be, to know yourself as creator, and
but you have to know every aspect. You have to get all the pieces of the puzzle.
But if you had this happen in your childhood, or if you can't feel into this particular part of your body or something, like, sorry, like,
sorry,
not for you. No soup for you.
Soup for you. No enlightenment soup for you.
No enlightenment soup for you. We just find all sorts of traps. We find all sorts of traps.
Totally. And so that's a really good point, right? It's like, we get these tests from the universe, like, how badly do you want this job as a teacher?
Uh-huh.
How badly do you want to, have like full vibrant energy? And we can actually get diverted, is what you're saying, and like what I'm trying to express in a very messy way, that you can get stuck in these little side currents, these little eddies over here that are diversionary tactics of perhaps the ego, or perhaps of culture and society, if you want to say that, that culture has a master plan to keep us, kind of, enslaved and not ascended, and like, like in turmoil, then feeling like we have to figure out all these things so that we can get, it's like, no, actually, like, there's so many things we're never ever going to figure out, and that at the end of the day, like, they might actually just be these diversionary things, or quite meaningless, or things that the ego can latch onto, so that we can feel like we are getting somewhere if we can just unpack this one thing. And it's like,
You just painted the most beautiful picture for this, that I mean, it's so perfect. So you have this river, and that you have all of these eddies along the side, and like, and if you picture an eddy, like, you maybe like figure out the eddy, but you're still in the fucking eddy, right?
yeah, you're
Like,
still spinning around in that little
spinning in
stuck,
the
you're
eddy,
still
like,
stuck there.
you're still stuck there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you've mastered the eddy. Well, big fucking deal, right? It's like, the point is not to spend time in the eddy. The point is to
Right.
be in the river. And
Right.
that's where, and the way to get back into the river, one of the ways to get back into the river is what I mentioned a little bit earlier, of finding those windows, those moments where in the now you choose to align yourself with something that brings that life force through. Like, I mean, for you, it's clear, like, that this creative, like, for you, there's this creative process outside of just putting creativity in your work that's missing, right? So like, for you, it's already clear what those windows are going to point you towards. But it's not always as clear for everyone, but it's just, you can kind of tell by the energy of whether it feels expansive or contracted, whether you're excited or not.
Totally.
And then finding this little, just find your way back into the current, the mainstream, which is not at all like mainstream, right?
The real mainstream.
The real mainstream.
Not this BS mainstream.
Not the BS mainstream, because that's an eddy as well.
Yeah, it's a giant eddy of swirling. We won't go there.
And
anyway,
to keep in mind too is, when you're in these eddies, when you find yourself in the eddy, is to ask yourself, is this really worth my energy?
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
I mean, because you can imagine like how exhausting it is to try to keep yourself afloat in an eddy, right?
Yeah.
And
who is Eddie anyway?
Who is Eddie? I don't know.
Did we know Eddie? Do we want to hang out with Eddie that long? I don't know.
Eddie's a creep, and we don't want to hang out with him. He may look alluring. He may draw us in with his big grin or something, his six-pack abs, whatever it is. But it's all just a cesspool.
It's just a cesspool. We do apologize to all the really good Eddies in the world. Yeah. Good questions. You're so smart, at April.
I'm gonna, I mean, we have like 3 more minutes. So
any questions?
Any questions, comments?
You want to pop in, or just got anything to share about Eddie? Do you know an Eddie that you know and love?
No, I don't know an Eddie. This just resonated with me, so I thank you very much. And I made some notes.
Perfect.
It was good.
Good. So glad you were here to witness our jokes live. Yeah. Yeah, and it was helpful for me too. I mean, I think that it's more than just the creativity avenue, that I need to get back into the mainstream. But it's a big piece of it.
Yeah,
So, that's been kind of just sort of just coming more clear and clear, but it's not the only piece. There's other pieces too.
right. The
But
cool thing, I mean, I felt so much energy
mhm,
in what you were talking about. Well, not energy. I felt so much life force in
right.
when you were
Right.
talking about that creative process for you,
Mhm,
that um like
yeah.
that I couldn't ignore it.
And this is exactly what Joseph Campbell means when he says, follow your bliss. It's like, follow where that energy leads you, where you find that you actually have the energy to get out of that eddy. Like, and it might seem like, well, what's the purpose of this? Like, how could this photo shoot that I have in my mind, like, end up like making me feel so much better? Like, it doesn't make sense in the 3D world. Of course, we know in the 5D world, it makes perfect sense. But in the, in the 3D, it's like, well, no, I need this treatment and I need this and I need this support. And all it's like, well, actually, what if the best prescription that I could ever write for myself is that I just, quit everything, quit WordPress, quit WordPressing because it's not working. And just, go and just go work on this throne that I have in my head, It's
Mhm.
like, hey, that's the best thing I could probably do right now.
I would try it, try
Yeah.
it. And there was one thing that you said that I just really wanted to mention, and it's gone completely. And
Follow your bliss. Was it about that?
and now it had to do with giving your power away. Oh, I would say too, like to here's what it was, is that I I think sometimes people take on the weight of the world, and that doesn't necessarily mean like the weight of the world. It could be like the weight of family problems, or
Mm-hmm.
concern about other people, or
Mm-hmm.
concern about society, or whatever it is. I'm calling that. They take it on. It doesn't serve them. It's not it's sucking up a lot of life force, and
Yeah.
it's not helping them with their
Mm-hmm.
own journey and life purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But they feel like if they were to let that go, it would be irresponsible, or
Mm-hmm.
it would be whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, to give those people permission to let that go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, there's this one idea of, you care but you don't carry. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not irresponsible to let go of the weight of the world,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're crumbling under that weight. If
Yeah.
you're
Right.
vibrant and you're living your life force, then,
Mm-hmm.
by all means, take on as much as you want. But if
Sure.
your life's not working, what can you let go of? And
Right.
and just know that it's not irresponsible. You're not being a
Mm-hmm.
bad citizen. You're not being a bad friend. You're not being a bad anything. It's put your own oxygen mask on first. Like, you're actually making things worse by carrying the weight that doesn't belong to you,
Right.
and not doing what you need to.
Totally. Yeah,
Um,
totally. I've been in that cycle.
I might have been
Sure.
my mentioned it.
You're so intuitive.
I didn't want to name any names, Anna, but and so we're out of time, and
Gotta go.
gotta go.
Well, thanks again for the free therapy, April. I really appreciate it and love you.
Love you too, and
And
until
have a
next.
beautiful day, everybody. And thanks for tuning in.